Greetings viewers, and welcome to the third and final installment in this series. I'm sure you're probably tired of hearing me yap about this same thing, but this video is going to kind of more apply not only to the new people to concealed carry, but even if you've been carrying for a while and you're already familiar with guns, just some thoughts and concepts and things to think about while you're out there every day carrying your gun around. When you carry a gun with you, you're also carrying a lot of responsibility with you. Yes, you are able to defend yourself and others a little bit better. However, that comes with a side of the coin a lot of people don't necessarily think about. You kind of just sit there and envision and fantasize about being the hero and saving the day. But at the end of the day, you are potentially taking somebody's life by responding to a situation. And I'm not saying that that's the wrong thing to do, depending on whatever situation you find yourself in or others have found themselves in, myself included. So I am speaking from experience. Several years ago, I was actually involved in a self-defense shooting incident. I was arrested. Subsequently, everything was taken care of. However, I still had stuff to go through, so I have a little bit of experience when it comes to what I'm telling you here in these videos. The story behind that incident I plan to save for another video, potentially for some milestone on this channel, maybe when I become monetized. It's actually a pretty good one, so stick around for that and tell your friends about the channel and help me get some more subscribers. So like I said, carrying a firearm with you is not for the faint of heart. The possibility of you actually having to use it is a lot different than you standing in the mirror in your underwear practicing your draws and dry firing. There's a lot of adrenaline, there's a lot of things that can happen. I can't sit here and tell you what incident you're going to be involved in or the circumstances surrounding it, and you're going to have your skills in a top-notch condition to be able to respond appropriately, not just physically but also mentally. Some people struggle with the fact that they may actually need to take somebody's life, and whether it's the right choice or the wrong one in the decision, obviously that's up to you to make, and potentially for a couple jurors to be in a room deciding on your fate depending on how you responded to the incident. And you may have done the right thing and could come out on the wrong side of it just because apparently in today's day and age, public outrage outweighs actual justice. So it's quite unfortunate. So there's a lot of circumstances and things that you need to keep in mind. So the first thing that's the most important when you're out and about is situational awareness. And I don't just mean in the sense of keeping yourself out of danger, because obviously that's the number one thing that you want to keep in mind. Just because you have a gun on you does not mean you need to go out looking for trouble. You need to be staying away from it, because now anytime anything happens, there is always a gun involved in the situation being yours on top of whatever else may be present. If something doesn't seem right, smell right, look right, stay away from it. Don't go to it. If you're stopping at a gas station late at night and it's pretty dark and there's some shady characters around and you think to yourself, I've got a gun, I can handle it if something happens, that's kind of the wrong mindset. It's okay to keep yourself out of a situation and look at something like that and say, you know what, I'm just going to go to the next gas station. Obviously, keeping that scenario in mind, you're running on fumes, you're sputtering up to the pump, there's not much you can do. You do what you got to do when you got to do it. Keep your head on a swivel, maybe nothing happens. If something does, at least you had the cognitive awareness to notice that something could happen, rather than just keeping your head inside your turtle shell and pumping gas, and then you're surprised and now have to come up with a plan of action of what you're going to do. Again, situational awareness applies not only prior to keeping yourself out of a situation, but if you find yourself involved in one. Let's just, again, come up with another example. You're in a gas station and somebody's robbing the guy at the register at gunpoint, and you want to be the hero and you're going to stop this guy, so you go to draw your gun, and next thing you know, you're getting shot from behind. Because the guy that's standing at the register with the gun came in with a friend that maybe you didn't notice and was kind of standing off to the side. He's the lookout for the cops or someone like you, making sure someone doesn't get the drop on his buddy, and guess what? You were trying to do the right thing, and you've now put yourself in a situation. You gave away your element of surprise because they had somebody else with them, and now you're the one that's hurt or killed because of it. So same gas station situation. Let's say there's 5 guys instead of 2 or 1, and you know that, hey, maybe I can get one of them, but it's not going to be worth it in the end. I'm just going to kind of comply. I'm going to stand off to the side. I'm going to walk away and go back outside and call the cops and start giving out a great description of the vehicle and the tag number that they came in, because that's probably going to be a little bit more helpful than you laying there hurt or killed because you were trying to be a hero. Keep in mind that if a situation does arise and you are forced to use your gun, you're backed into a corner, there is no other option, and you take action, regardless of the situation and regardless of you knowing you did the right thing and you were in the right and there was nothing wrong with what you did, you may still end up being arrested. Again, I can speak from personal experience on this, and so can many other people that we've seen and heard in the news, and they've had all kinds of legal trouble and are still to this day, years later, battling all of those things. It may not seem fair, it may not make sense. You did the right thing and now next thing you know, you're in handcuffs and you're standing there at first appearance trying to figure out what the heck's going on, telling everybody, I don't belong here, this isn't right. At the end of the day, technically speaking, if you shot and killed somebody, you committed murder. And whether it's justified or not, that's the part that the legal system has to decide, because yes, again, you did right. But if you go talk to that person's family, of course, that person did nothing wrong and they were a sweet boy, and they're going to show their kindergarten photo instead of what they actually look like, and they're going to find the worst photo they possibly can of you to post online. And again, you're going to potentially have a bunch of backlash from it, depending on how much airtime your story gets and how many people get upset about it. Something else that you need to keep in mind is that just because you know that you're a good guy and you know that you have a gun, the other people around you don't know you. The other people around you don't know you have a gun. And you also don't know those people, and you don't know who else around you has a gun and may also be a good guy. So let's take, for example, there have been numerous attempted mass shootings in malls, and more notably one recently was stopped very quickly by an individual. So let's just take that scenario, for example, and let's just say you're in the mall enjoying yourself, minding your business with your family. All of a sudden, a bad guy with a gun comes in and decides to start shooting. And you do the right thing, you draw your gun and you take out the bad guy. And next thing you know, now you're getting shot by somebody from somewhere unknown. Is it one of the bad guy's friends? Is it another concealed carry holder that heard the shots and came running and all they see is you shooting somebody? So now they start taking shots at you. Or maybe there's an undercover or off-duty cop working there. Or the mall here where I live actually has a uniformed city police officer assigned to it as their security, and he is responsible for the entire mall. And perhaps, he was a little bit further away than you were. He comes around the corner and all he sees is you shooting somebody. He doesn't know who you are. You don't have a uniform on. There's no sign over your head that says you're a good guy. Hopefully, best case scenario, get a gun pointed at you and be told to get on the ground. And that's not the time to argue and say, no, it's okay, I'm the good guy. Do what you're told. Because it would suck to be a good guy doing a good thing and then get shot by another good guy. In reverse, if you are the one that comes around the corner after hearing shots and just because you see somebody shooting somebody else, do you know that that's the good guy or bad guy? And how do you know that? Again, this goes back to that situational awareness and paying attention. So just being in a hurry to draw your gun and start firing rounds at somebody may not be the right thing. You may shoot that person and then all of a sudden everybody's yelling at you, telling you that was the good guy and they just shot the bad guy. And now you're the bad guy. So these are things that you need to think about. And again, that situational awareness. So some of these evil people that like to do these mass shootings typically not necessarily wear a uniform, but they kind of make it obvious that they're a bad guy when they start wearing all black and covering up their face or trying to look tactical with their Wish.com gear and subpar tactics. So perhaps you can tell based on what they're wearing or their body language or what they're doing. If they're carrying an AK-47 in the mall, chances are they weren't concealed carrying that. Maybe a dead giveaway, but you never know the situation that you're going to be involved in. So again, having good information, situational awareness, and being able to respond appropriately. And then again, understanding that just because you pulled the trigger and the bad guy's down, the incident isn't over. We have in-service training all the time, and typically after the bad guy's shot, they end the scenario and everybody talks about what happens. And the times that they don't do that and they just let it run to see what everybody's going to do, nobody knows how to act because typically it always ends. And then we just go kind of do a debriefing and it doesn't stop after that. There is still so much more to come. Again, you could be arrested. Worst case, you're not arrested, but they're going to take your gun for evidence and forensics. And you may be without that for several months. And you'll still kind of be on standby and waiting to hear from them what they're going to do with you, waiting to see if charges are going to be filed or not. Again, if you get arrested, you're going to have to you may or may not get a bond, and you may be sitting in jail for a while, and it can be kind of rough, especially if, again, you're a good guy trying to do the right thing, and all of a sudden now you're lumped in with a bunch of people in a place where you don't actually belong, but you can't really get anybody to understand that. So it is vitally important that you make sure that You avoid situations at all costs. If you are involved in a situation, you have no choice and you respond, you need to understand what can happen. I don't personally know much about it. I know there are carry insurance companies out there. That could be something that I would recommend you looking into, and or having a number of an attorney on speed dial or committed to memory, which I know is hard these days. We have everything programmed in our cell phone, but if something happens and you're afforded a call, you may want to go ahead and get somebody on your side. Because again, the situation you're involved in may be a little bit convoluted. And to you, again, it makes sense because you were there and you know what happened, but other people that are there are not going to have seen the same thing. And you may have 7 witnesses on scene and you're going to have 7 different stories about what everybody saw and what they personally interpreted about the scenario. And just because you have a gun, they automatically don't like you and they may skew the story a little bit in favor of the other guy. Having that attorney available is going to do you a lot of good. More than likely, you are going to be read your rights and you're going to be afforded the opportunity to remain silent. So one of the things that happens with stuff like this is something called critical incident amnesia. Unless you have an absolute photographic memory and you remember every single detail about an incident like that, chances are it may be a little bit spotty because you're going to just be responding on instinct. And you may not remember all the specific details. And typically it can take maybe a couple days for everything to kind of work itself out and your brain to connect the pieces of what actually happened. So at the scene, providing a story of what happened, you're now locked into that. And if later on you wake up in the middle of the night and you're like, oh my goodness, I completely forgot about this, and it's too late, you've already given your story, that's what they're going to go with, that's what's in the report. And changing your story later, well, now it just looks bad and you're trying to change it. So keeping that right to remain silent is probably your best bet. Again, contacting an attorney. It's always quite possible that, they just kind of, something happens, everybody there, comes to your aid. There's a surveillance video that shows exactly what happened. The witnesses are giving testimony that's all to your credit, and you're the good guy and you save the day, and worst case, your gun's taken from you for a couple months. Hey, that's an excellent outcome. Also, keep in mind, things like this can affect people differently. So it's also okay, let's just say you're the good guy, you take out the bad guy, you're praised a hero, they take your gun from you for a couple months, but now every time you go to sleep, all you can think about is that incident and it's bothering you. And if that happens, it's okay to talk to somebody, and it's a lot better to do that before it becomes a problem instead of trying to just be the tough guy and brush it off and sweep it under the rug. And then next thing you know, your family's having an intervention because they're concerned about you. So you don't want any of those things to happen to you. Everybody's built differently mentally, and that's okay. And nobody should be giving you a hard time if you are having a hard time dealing with that. Depending on your background and how you grew up, or maybe you were in the military and you've seen combat before and it's nothing to you, or this is your first time, you just turned 21 and got your first concealed carry gun, and the first time you went on an outing, something happened, you've got no life experience or anything under your belt there, and it causes you some trauma. It's quite possible, and it's okay. Again, don't be afraid to talk to somebody, even if it's just a friend or family, and just let them know something's bothering you, or going to talk to a professional and get some help before it gets a little bit out of control and more than you can manage. One of the other things that you see and hear a lot of times when there's a shooting, typically with a police-involved shooting, is people will say, well, why did you shoot him so many times? Or why did they have to shoot so many times? Unfortunately, a lot of people get their information and their news about guns from TV and movies, which is absolutely in the realm of fantasy and 99% of the time not realistic at all. If you are involved in an incident and you shoot somebody, there can be a lot of training scars that carry over. So for example, if you're on the range at home and there's no stress induced, you're shooting at a piece of paper that's not shooting back, and you shoot one round at the target and you pull your gun down to look up and you want to see where you hit, and then you come back on target, you shoot, and you want to peek and see where you hit. Stuff like that can carry over into an incident, and that's not going to be good. If you fire a round and miss, or hit somewhere that's not a vital area, and then you're stopping to assess where your shot went, that's not going to help you. You need to put multiple rounds downrange. The rule is you need to shoot until the target is not a threat anymore. And just because they fell down does not mean they are not a threat. I can show you multiple shooting positions from the ground or from alternate positions that would not be normal, standing there flat-footed on a range with your arms extended in a perfect shooting position. That bad guy can still be a threat. As long as they're armed And as long as they are breathing and alive, they are still a threat. So you need to keep that in mind. And again, try not to do things when you're actually on the range practicing and training that are going to carry over and can be scars that will hurt you later on. Also, again, like I mentioned, you are not invincible simply because you are a good guy and simply because you are carrying a gun. It would behoove you to at least have access to some sort of medical equipment in the event that you are hurt during an incident. So if you get in a shootout with somebody, there's a possibility, if the bad guy has a gun, that you may get shot. Having the ability to help yourself with something as simple as a tourniquet or something out of a small IFAK would do you good. If you're able to carry one of those on your person, you're already a prepared individual, you've got a firearm, you've got some backup ammo, you've got a flashlight, a knife, throw a small medical kit in a cargo pocket or around your ankle or somewhere that's not going to be so obtrusive that it's going to interfere with your daily activities, but it's also going to be there in the event that you need it. And it may not be for you. It may be for your spouse. Perhaps, you know, the first person that gets shot during an incident is your spouse. You take out the bad guy, well, it doesn't do you any good staring there watching your significant other bleed if there's nothing that you can do to help them. Typically, those medical kits are reserved for yourself, but then when it's determined that that's not needed, then you can use it to help render aid to others. So again, just some food for thought. Hopefully you found something in any of these 3 videos helpful for you. I know it may be a little bit boring just kind of having a talking head video, but hopefully some of the information I've given you has given you some additional things to think about, some equipment to put in your toolbox. If you've made it this far, I appreciate you watching. Please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, whatever you feel the need to do. Stay tuned for more videos with a little bit more dynamic stuff where we're going to do some shooting. I've got to kind of break it up a little bit, do some of these thought-provoking talks, do some shooting, do some weapon maintenance and breakdowns. So anyways, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video.